Coldplay's Sky Full of Stars on BBC Radio Lancashire. Now, as the commemorations for the centenary of World War I begin, a new production celebrating the poet Wilfred Owen is coming to Oswaldtwistle. As well as being a timely event, it also has historic significance. Owen's army training was conducted in Lancashire. Dean Johnson, who wrote the biomusical Bullets and Daffodils, discovered the most poignant connection that Wilfred shared with Lancashire is that on the morning of Owen's death, a week before the end of World War I, his platoon engaged on a manoeuvre with the Lancashire Fusiliers. I'm pleased to say that Dean joins us on the line now to tell us more this afternoon. We do recognise, of course, Dean, the name of Wilfred Owen in connection with World War I, but not necessarily the Lancashire connection. Tell us more about that and how you come to find out more about his life.
Well, as we've been touring with the show, I always kind of look for tangible links, you know, and there's a lot of them, because even though Owen perished so young, he did get around, and of course he did a lot of his training in Southport, which I believe was Lancashire then, wasn't it? I mean, Lancashire, the borders of it was a lot bigger than it is now.
Yeah, it would still have been Lancashire. Yeah. It changed, I think, in 74, didn't it? The borders and Southport went into Merseyside.
Yeah, so technically, you know, most of his training was done in Lancashire. Also, the Artist Rifles, the regiment he first joined, you know, he writes extensively of lads, you know, from Lancashire, brave lads that were with him, and but really the tragedy of Owen's life, you know, is that it was, you know, 7 days before the end of the war when he met his end, and they were just crossing a small canal in a village called Ors in France, and they were sort of in this manoeuvre. They were to be joined by the Lancashire Fusiliers, which they arrived maybe 20 minutes after Owen had been killed. So, but they were able to help the rest of his company and sort of defeat the enemy and live another day. But it was too late for Owen. But they were saying they did their best, you know.
And why did you decide to write the music for the poetry? Quite a brave decision in many ways. Yes.
Well, what it was, I've been a songwriter here in Birkenhead in the Wirral for a long time, and the local authority about 5 years ago, they asked me to write a song celebrating Owen, a tribute to him. And I was looking at different ways of doing it. I think you have to be really careful with people like Owen and people from the First World War. If you don't do it right, it can be very mawkish and very sort of, you know, you can do them like an injustice, and so I couldn't quite get it to how I wanted it. And then I thought, maybe if I take Owen's words himself and set that to music, that's a better way of paying tribute. And also it's taking it off the printed page into another medium where people can maybe accept it a little easier. So I took Futility, which is one of his shorter poems, but it's a very well-known one, and I set that to music, and it was in the local press. But within a few days, the Owens family had contacted me and said they were aware of it and could have sent it to them, and I did, and they really, really liked it, and asked me would I consider doing more, because they thought it was a way of reaching a younger generation with the poetry. Because you know, Gilly, that I think that Owen, because he's featured so heavily in schools, and I think when you leave school, you want to leave a lot of that stuff there, don't you? You don't want to bring it with you. And I think a lot of us think, well, Owen, I was at school, I'll leave that there, and you don't take it with you in the rest of your life, and how important his words were. So I was trying to recast him as part of a modern song, and then even if people didn't know initially that they're Wilfred Owen's words, if they like the music and like the song, then they would investigate it more and go, hey, that's a poem from 100 years ago by a war poet. You know, I wonder, you know, I wouldn't mind getting the book of that or something.
And once the songs are produced, then obviously you need performers. Yeah. How did you go about casting?
Well, really, you know, sort of, this was my first theatrical project. I've been just a regular singer-songwriter up until now, and really, I just did all the regular things. I just put the word out, sort of thing, and locally, and then people came to me, sort of thing. Like our first director was Dean Sullivan from Brookside, and he knew people, and they came in, but it was kind of important that to me that people understood the lines they were saying, and it wasn't always successful sort of thing. People had to understand Owen and understand the relevance of the terror of World War One, and sort of. But in the end, I got a great cast, you know. I'm not saying, but I had to do it in a contemporary way. I didn't want it to be like any kind of old musicals that sort of maybe made light of things. So it's quite a dark piece, and it's played out very seriously. And also early on, I was really lucky. I've got this thing I call the Wilfred Owen effect. Every time I write to someone, people really want to help. I wrote to Christopher Timothy of him being a possible narrator for the piece, and again 3 days later he got back to me and said, I'll do anything if it's Owen. He's just my all-time hero. And it happened again. I wrote to Pink Floyd's David Gilmour, asking could I use a section of his music from one of his solo albums, and you know, he phoned me from an island that he owns in the Mediterranean and said, whatever you want to do, use it. I love Owen, you know.
Well, why do you think why do you think he's influenced so many people and made a mark on so many people's lives?
I think Gilly, because he always told the truth. I think that a lot of the other war poets, sort of Brooke and people like that, even though maybe rightly so, they were very pro English and very like a little bit of gung ho, really, like saying, come on, you know, flag waving and let's beat the enemy. Owen never chose sides. He never said us and them. He just said this is wrong, and a lot of people are suffering from it. And so because he had that purity like that, and he was a very modern poet. You know, if you look at the stuff before Owen, the poetry, it's very, very sort of, you know, very kind of lilting and sort of kind of romantic. Owen changed that. He's the kind of first person that said it like it was, and because he didn't flower it up, it's lasted. You know, it's sort of because his words are like just like little documentaries. They're like a little close-up camera on one of your news bulletins. That's what's happening. That's what I'm going to say, and so it's timeless that way.
And have rehearsals gone well so far?
Yeah, it's brilliant. It just really is. It's sort of, I mean, it does all get to us because you know, because we go through the whole thing of his life. We start in Birkenhead, and then we've all grown to love him. And it's like spending so much time with Wilfred, and then every night we have to lose him at the end. And but then every night, if like, you know, half a dozen people go away and understand him better and research him and buy the anthologies, then that was worth it.
And also as well, is it a small cast or a large cast?
No. There's only the four of us. Yeah, so it's a really small, intimate thing. It's told through the words of his mother and father, Tom and Susan. Like it starts in the aftermath of him being killed, and then goes backwards. And Owen doesn't appear. Only his words do, because that's the way it is. Owen isn't here, and his words are. So I really. I think people have got such a strong construct of what Owen would look like or be like. I looked for a year and a half to try and find a Wilfred Owen, but I just couldn't. And I thought maybe this is telling me not to find him. Maybe the words will do.
Stay there a moment, because we'll come back and we'll chat a little bit more after the news headlines at 2:30 about the production that's taking place at the Oswaldtwistle Civic Arts Centre. We'll talk about that between now and 2:45. We'll also the biomusical Bullets and Daffodils, and discovered the most poignant connection that Wilfred Owen shared with Lancashire is that on the morning of Owen's death, a week before the end of World War One, his platoon engaged on a manoeuvre with the Lancashire Fusiliers. This was a bit of a new challenge for you, I think, wasn't it, Dean? Because, as you said, normally a singer-songwriter.
Yeah.
How did you have to approach this then?
Well, really, just by writing the thing initially, just like, you know, once I got over, you know, setting the poems to music, and then people actually thinking it was quite powerful. Then I just had to move into the more theatrical world. I was quite surprised of how complex and how challenging it is. You know, from just being a guy in a band or something like that, a stage production has got so many facets to it. It's you know, it's every hour of the day, every day of the week for years. And I know that like people like Andrew Lloyd Webber and that have spoken about things like this. It's sort of it just becomes your life. It has been a tough old journey, but really, really rewarding one, because there's nothing like on stage, because you're kind of four-dimensional. You know, it's from just standing there with a guitar once to have these people doing different things. It's kind of if you get it right, it's 4 times the power, you know.
Is it? I mean, obviously, does this give you a bit of a thirst for writing musicals? Then?
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. What time I've got a few ideas about other things, and you know, and I even might take Bullets Daffodils further. I might. I've got an idea to do a follow-up, which deals with maybe the period after the war, and how Owen's words like affected or reflected like World War II, you know. So I'm thinking about that. I've done so much research into Owen now, and it seems like that's going to be my thing. You know, I curate a small museum here in Birkenhead dedicated to him as well.
What sort of things have you got in the museum?
Well, beyond his poetry and that, you know, a timeline through his life. You know, memorabilia. I got a couple of family letters. Got a nice little pencil drawing that was given to me by the Owen family that Wilfred drew of his younger brother in Christmas 1900. So, there's some great little stories of his links here in Birkenhead, because he was here for 7 years. Did all his schooling here, and when that record was playing, it just reminded me that that Owen really loved Blackpool. They were saying that his family often like holidayed there, and which is like sort of like another link. They really liked that part of the world.
You mentioned there at school in Birkenhead, the Birkenhead Institute. That was also the school that you went to as well. I mean, was he held in high regard by the teachers when you were there as a student?
Yeah, he was like omnipresent, Gilly. He was everywhere. You could kind of sense him in the corridors and things like that. But being whatever it was then, 11, 12, I couldn't grasp the importance of what him and the men in the World War had done. I was 12 years old. I thought I was going to live forever, and I was just running around. And but I do remember you would run down the corridor, and then you would come to this cabinet where there was a picture of him and actually one of his school books and his cap. And you would stop running and just think for a minute and contemplate things. I don't know why, but he did kind of stop you in his tracks even then. Just that face, And it was a very strong sport in school. It was a rugby school. We didn't play football. That was like frowned upon. And on freezing cold November days, when we're meeting some other team, the sports master would say that it's not just the school, it's Owen and the other boys that have fallen before you that you're doing this for, and it did put like a spring in your step and kind of fill your lungs with a second wind,
And just before we finish this afternoon, you've got to read a short extract for us, aren't you? Just tell us the background to this and what you've got to read for us.
You see that. This was one of Owen's final poems, and it's one of his most well-known, Futility. It was the first one that I set to music, and it's a beautiful poem because he seems to have lost faith in kind of like orthodox kind of religion or mankind itself, and he's kind of speaking to nature to try and bring a fallen soldier beside him back to life. So, Futility. Moving into the sun, gently its touch awoke him once. At home, the whispering fields half sown, always awoke him, even in France, until this morning and this snow. If anything might rise him now, the kind old sun will know. Think how it wakes the seeds, and it woke once the clays of this cold star. Our limbs so dear achieved, our sides full nerves, still warm, too hard to stare. Was it for this that the clay grew tall, and what fatuous sunbeams toil to break earth's sleep at all?
There we are, well read and beautifully performed for us this afternoon by Dean Johnson. Taking place, of course, at the Oswaldtwistle Civic Arts Centre. I mean, this venue has developed into a lovely place, hasn't it? This have you been before?
The enthusiasm from the staff there to bring us there has been fantastic. You know, that they kind of approach me, and which is always great, and they're doing everything they can to make the evening a success. I think it's like Saturday the 14th of June.
And it's just on one night, Saturday the 14th.
That's right. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And obviously you're looking forward to that.
Yeah, brilliant. I played the centre, the Civic Centre, about 10 or 12 years ago, like when I was a songwriter. Yeah. And so it was a great evening. I can't wait to go back.
So there we are, from songwriter to playwright. Now Dean Johnson joining us this afternoon, 14th of June. We'll put the details on the help desk. 0345 305 9000 is the number to call if you want details of that. Evergreen and Barbara Streisand to the travel next.